and welcome you to this Greer City Council meeting called and convened August the 26th, 2025. Being duly assembled, I'd like to ask Councilman Jay Arrowood, if he would, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. If you would like to join us, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for this beautiful day that you have given us. I thank you for this city that you have allowed me to serve, your city. I thank you for this council that has gives of their time to serve the city and serve you. And I pray, Lord, as we go through this evening doing the business of your city, that you will give us the wisdom and the guidance that we need to make the decisions that are pleasing in your sight. In your holy name, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Ms. Duncan, anyone to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
Council, with that, let's move to the minutes of our previous council meeting. That would be August the 12th, 2025. I'll entertain a motion that they be received.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any items of note for the clerk this evening? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert. Yes. Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council will move to departmental reports. They are contained in your packet this evening. As always, administrator will be glad to answer any questions you might have, or department heads. Mr. Klein joins us this evening for our financial update. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Financial performance summary as of July 2025. Starting in the general fund, we had a cash balance of $25,627,000. Year-to-date revenue of $545,000. Year-to-date expenditures of $2,569,000, and currently 1% under budget. We had an unfavorable revenue benchmark variance of $86,251, an unfavorable expenditure benchmark variance of $221,000, with an overall unfavorable benchmark variance of $307,000. Moving on to hospitality fund, we had a cash balance of $1,986,000, year-to-date revenue of $341,000, year-to-date expenditures of $3,496. Finally, stormwater fund, we had a cash balance of $3,769,000, year-to-date revenue of $12,000, year-to-date expenditures of $2,100. And with that, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Floor is open for discussion or questions.
You use the word unfavorable. What would make it more favorable?
I use favorable versus unfavorable, rather saying negative, positive, just to avoid confusion of a negative variance or a positive expenditure variance could be taken a couple different ways. It's more my preference of saying favorable versus unfavorable.
Is that, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, is that a function of the date we are within collecting revenue? Is that what?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and it's the first month of the fiscal year, so that's as expected. It's also what we saw last year as well.
Yes.
Others? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Alex Cahill is our Director of Planning and Development Services, and we welcome him. He is fairly new at this point. We'll give him that. How about that? He's settling in, and I'm waiting for him to put something on a shelf or to hang a picture, so he's planning on staying here. So, but we appreciate what you're doing in terms of our planning department and planning and development department. And he brings an update this evening on the goals and objectives of the planning and development department. The floor is yours, sir.
Great. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Danner and honorable council members. I'm Alex Kayla, as you heard. I do plan on staying, so I will get some more things in my office. I'd like to take some time tonight to share about how we continue to build Greer together as a team, council, department, staff, and the community. So the presentation tonight is really about more than department updates and department trends, and more about the work that we're doing that lays the foundation for Greer, how we support the work the council is doing in administration, and how we go hand in hand with your guidance in this work. So what we're covering tonight is we're going to look at some of the things that are staying consistent in the department that we do now. We're going to explore some of the things that we're looking to improve, share some of our department goals with you, some key projects and initiatives, and then talk about next steps in council engagement. I can be long-winded, so I'm going to try not to be tonight. So how did we get here? Our journey really began with some listening and learning. We had an opportunity when a new director or department head comes on to really kind of take a step back and look at operations. We also had an opportunity with a new city administrator, Reno over our department as well, kind of a new perspective coming on board. And so we had an opportunity to kind of look at our department's operations, our existing capacity, and our gaps in service. Where are we missing the mark? Where are places that we could do better? We hosted visioning workshops with with all the groups in the department. We got together and visioned for things that we think we should see the city grow towards, where we are now, and where we should go. Met with other department heads to get their perspective on what work they're doing and where we can collaborate. Research peer organizations, including the American Planning Association, ICMA, and some other nonprofits that help support our work. And then we got together as a department and workshopped and prioritized through our department leadership team on where we think we should go. And before we jump into the good stuff, I do want to introduce my department here, because at the heart of our department and our team is really the people who review, inspect, and guide development daily in our city. Their adaptability, professionalism, and dedication are why this department is so strong in the first place. I'm very blessed that I inherited such a great team. They're not just staff, they're builders of trust, safety, and community in Greer. And you're probably familiar with some of them. You get the privilege of meeting our very lean but highly effective planning team on a pretty consistent basis. You'll see Ashley tonight, and you probably see Heather and Andy pretty often as well. But the rest of the department working behind the scenes you don't get to see too often. And that includes our plan review team, who oversee commercial and residential plan review, our community standards or code enforcement team that are doing the observable violation sweeps and education-based work in our community, the building inspections team, who is actually inspecting structures and following through on permits, and then we have our permitting tech team. They oversee essentially the development process from start to end on the administrative side. And to round it out, Ms. Nikki Johnson, our administrative assistant, helps support this entire team of 20. So what's staying the same? We don't want to come in, I've learned, I'm a little older than I look, I've learned that you don't want to come in and just change everything. There's a lot of things that our department's doing really, really well that we want to leverage as strengths. And I'll say this, our foundation is solid here in Greer. It's really exciting to come on board and see. So we're going to preserve what's already is working and has worked for a long time. Responsible development, quick and efficient review times, high turnaround times, high quality technical comments, education-based enforcement, and strong interdepartmental collaboration. These are non-negotiables that Greer has come to expect for us, and they will remain unchanged. But growth demands some change from us. We're building upon our foundation, I think, in 6 key ways as a department, and I'm excited to share this tonight. Our first is strategic alignment. We started working day one. My supervisor gave me a really quick turnaround time on getting this work done, and I think I rose to the challenge. Developing a 5-year strategic plan. What does it look like for our operations to serve the community, meet council priorities and administration priorities over the course of 5 years? So we've been working on a 5-year plan. Expanding community voice. My background has a strong focus in community engagement, so I know a lot of what not to do and what does work. And so we're really looking to expand engagement in processes and planning initiatives. Utilizing dashboards, performance metrics, user testing, focusing on more of a data-driven process. I am really big on metricizing. I think if we're measuring something, then we're able to either achieve it or see when we're not. Workforce development. We have a great team, and we want to make sure we're supporting them in their learning and professional development, their growth through enhanced staff training and leadership development. Process optimization, mapping our development processes from start to finish, which is a lot harder than it sounds, but really taking ownership of that and then identifying capacities to leverage. And then lastly, a focus on proactive and long-range planning. We have this really good foundation. We have an extremely strong current planning team. How do we take that work and proactively engage in responsible data-driven growth management? And so with that, I'd like to transition to some of the key initiatives that we're going to be focusing on over the course of just this next fiscal year. We've talked about the areas that we're improving and the direction we're growing, and our next step is to really put these improvements into action. So the first, over the last decade, y'all have seen, if you've been here, I'm the new guy. Over the last decade, we've seen unprecedented growth, thousands of new residents. They're choosing to make Greer their home because of the high quality of life, because of everything that y'all have been doing. And with that growth comes opportunity, but also real challenges. Other parts of the country have experienced housing affordability challenge, housing supply challenges. We've been fortunate in Greer that we are on the forefront of that. We're seeing an aging housing stock in some neighborhoods, and while some new developments come online, they're at slightly higher price points. With that, we propose a housing assessment and strategy report, and this will allow us to do a few things. This will allow us to make an objective, full picture take on what do we have in Greer, what's missing, what do we need to do to support Greer's future. It will analyze current conditions, project future demand, and identify where the gaps in affordability and access truly exist. And then I think most importantly, a housing assessment and strategy report won't be just a study. I'm very big on not creating plans or studies just for the sake of it, as I think hopefully we all are, but we want it to be a tool. With it, we can use it to craft targeted policies, identify zoning adjustments, pursue outside funding and partnerships, and it will really give us the roadmap to ensure that housing in Greer works for everyone, from the first-time home buyer to retirees to renters to long-time homeowners. I think by investing in the strategy now for a housing assessment and strategy report, that we are addressing today's challenges, but we're also staying ahead of tomorrow's. And we're going to make sure that Greer remains a place with a high quality of life and affordable housing. The next key initiative that our department is focused on, and some of you have already participated, as we started focusing on community engagement with our code enforcement team. Housing isn't just about the numbers. Housing is about the quality of the neighborhoods where people live. And as we plan for future demand and affordability, we also have to make sure that the homes and communities that we already have remain safe, well-maintained, and livable. And so that's where our code enforcement and community standards team comes in. It's just not about rules. It's about preserving property values. It's about protecting health and safety. It's about building pride in our neighborhoods. So our proactive approach with code enforcement over the course of this year and continuing years is really rooted in engagement and education first, instead of starting with penalties. We want to start with conversations, meeting residents where they're at, listening to their concerns, and providing resources that help them succeed. This does not mean we don't follow our violation-based system. It just means that we intervene at the beginning through education. The goal is fairness, consistency, and transparency, so that every resident feels as they're a part of the solution, not just the subject of enforcement. Another key initiative, the third of four this evening that I wanted to discuss, is a long-range planning focus. Engaging residents around neighborhood standards and code enforcement is about strengthening the quality of life today, but long-range planning can help us focus on where we need to go with our communities in the future and how we support them and their quality of life. Just as neighbors want safe, well-maintained communities right now, they also want confidence that Greer is planning wisely for tomorrow. With this, we want to focus on a robust growth management strategy that creates predictability. One of the things I've learned in my work is that predictability benefits everyone. It benefits staff, decision makers, developers, and the community members alike. It allows us to anticipate what's coming. It allows us to pivot more adeptly when something doesn't follow exactly how we planned. It also helps us align as a long-range perspective and growth management strategy, infrastructure, housing demand, shaping growth intentionally, and the services that correspond to that. Y'all are probably familiar with the comprehensive plan, and you will see that 5-year update sometime this fall. We are required by state law to do this, the 5-year and 10-year marks. So that is one version of a long-range planning exercise. But there are others that we would want to explore in the future that we want to start setting the foundations for. Those could include neighborhood level and small area plans, tree canopy plans, growth corridors and annexation plans, transportation mobility plans, and open space master plans. There are also options that may or may not be the right fit for Greer, but it's worth exploring around rural area plans or agricultural preservation areas. Any long-range plan, in our opinion, would really need a strong implementation mechanism, but the starting point is really a long-range focus for us to be able to pivot and get there. And then lastly, our fourth key initiative this year that we want to start, but it's going to take some time to build out and work on, is really our community impact and engagement work. We want to focus on building out a community engagement or impact division with the focus on bringing voices into the processes, both planning and other processes where appropriate. This will help us support neighborhood level planning exercises, small area plans, corridor plans. It will also allow us to launch ways to support housing and housing strategies that may be revealed or should be revealed in that housing assessment that was the first initiative. And why would we do this now? You know, with the growth pressures going on, some of us here in different departments, some of the trust gaps that we want to help build those bridges. And then with immigration expectations, when you have folks move from across the country to other places, sometimes they're expecting something and they move somewhere else and they're learning a new way to do it, but there's ways to rise and meet those expectations. And so that fourth key initiative is really building out a community impact and engagement division. Now I'm gonna wrap it up here because like I said, I can talk a lot, but when our teams got together, we came up with 98 goals over 5 years that we felt we could do. I'm not gonna cover all of them tonight, I promise y'all. I'm gonna quickly, in 3 slides or less, or exactly 3 slides, go over just some of the key ones, and then we'll close it out here and open it up for feedback or questions. So department goals, we have it broken down into 3 pillars. The first is around policy and operations. You've already heard about some of the key ones around the housing strategy and community impact divisions. Some other things that we'd like to do are enhance our customer service through measurement. That's a best practice in the development services and development field that we'd like to implement. Focusing on that community education, developing small area plans, developing transportation, natural resource, and long-range planning work, developing a community engagement strategy, supporting or collaborating on placemaking. We don't need to do everything, but we need to be available to help support. Launching community cleanups, and leading Vision Zero work. On the strategic process improvement side, if you haven't figured it out, this is really my bread and butter and what I get excited about, but there's always ways to leverage an inefficiency or capacity, in my opinion. It's hard in Greer because we have some of the quickest turnaround times you will ever find, but there's always things that we can do differently. So some of that is going to include improving our data usage, using Lean or Six Sigma techniques in looking at our operations, fostering a culture of innovation, digitizing our records, and then enhancing processes through something called user testing. That's where the person that's actually using the application, process, et cetera, is actually the person user testing it to see how that looks, sounds, and feels, so we can design it around how they would use it. And kudos to our permit team who's already started that work. And then lastly, some of our strategic personnel goals really align with kind of the city's work, but we really want to make sure that we're taking a deep dive on do we have job families that's, say that would be like a code enforcement officer 1, 2, and 3, ways for people to really move up in the chain after demonstrating their success and proficiency. Succession planning, not for me because I'm too new. Performance review, just making sure we're aligning the work with the goals that we're all setting together. Focusing on leadership development. Poor Ashley and Sam, I feel like I've pushed this on them a lot, but they've ran with it and done a great job. Formalized training and onboarding program, cross-training, focusing on everybody having the professional certifications, and then in an internship fellowship program down the road. And lastly, metricize. We want to be able to measure what we're doing to show y'all and the community that what we're doing is impactful and meaningful. So last 2 slides, looking ahead, some of the things that will be coming up. We're looking to finalize and release the Housing Assessment and Strategy Report, RFP. That would go out on September 7th. It's about a 2-month process to go through that. We did interview different consultants in the field to get a sense of what works best in the space, so we're doing something that's really Greer specific. The next would be launching the department's strategic 5-year plan. Continuing the community standards education, the next event is at Praise Cathedral Church on September 4th for the Greer Mill community. Exploring the feasibility for housing initiatives after we get that assessment. What is it telling us? And then providing biannual progress updates to council so that y'all have an opportunity to provide feedback, guidance, and or updates on what's going on. So with that, we just ask for your help championing community engagement in our work where it's possible and feasible. And then advise us and support us like you already do on our department's action items and how to best align with council priorities. We want to make sure that we are implementing what the council priorities are as we move forward. So with that, let's continue to build Greer together, and I'm here for any questions, suggestions, or comments.
Council, the floor is open for questions or discussion.
This is more a question for Andy. They mentioned a lot of great points from a budgeting perspective. Have we accounted for these things already, or?
A number of those, yes, sir, we have. And I believe Mr. Cahill is right to say that this is part of a 5-year plan. So as we, especially when we go into the budget retreat, typically in February with y'all, I think we're going to align a lot of those, start planning for those financially. But some of the things that were mentioned in here have been budgeted for and will be implemented this year.
I like the report. It was. I'm a big-time planner, strategic planning. And you can ask Mr. Merriman, the city has a strategic plan. I do not think it's been updated in a while, and I was going to wait to the administrator's report, but since this kind of segues into it, I think that we need to set aside some time to develop a citywide strategic plan. As Alex, as he finished up, he said that he wanted basically the support of council, wanted to make sure they were doing what we wanted. But if we don't have a strategic plan in place, then they can be shooting in the dark, and that's not helpful. It's definitely not efficient. So for council, for the administration, we need to either put a line item on the agenda or hold a special meeting where we can update our strategic plan.
Mr. Cahill, the phrase proactive code enforcement jumped out to me, which I like and appreciate. Proactive is almost always a good thing. Can you give examples of what that's going to look like versus what it has looked like up to this point?
Absolutely. And so, Joe Holbrooks is our code enforcement supervisor. To his testament, he started this work, I think a few months, maybe even about a year before I started, and we're really taking it to the next level. But that is actually going through and building relationships with community members, giving them resources and tools to improve their home. One thing that's happening now is if somebody's home is not code compliant and they can't afford to improve it? Can we direct those resources to GCRA for their home improvement program? And so it's really about recognizing the situation, providing the education materials, and really working with that person. So that's one example. The other is the education component. So going out into the community, holding engagement events, providing services in the sense that this is what we do, we're here to answer your questions and be here for you. So that's kind of the two pivots.
Helping people understand, kind of what that means and looks like, and then helping them correct even when there is an issue. I just want, what I'm not hearing is like going up and down streets, measuring a weed in a yard, pulling over, that kind of thing, proactively that way. Is that correct?
Yes and no, diplomatic answer. So it's not about doing sweeps in that sense, but it is if there's observable violations, the first step would be to make contact, and this is where Joe's team already does this. They'll make contact, they'll try to bring someone in compliance by offering resources, working with them before it becomes a violation at that point. But absolutely, if they see grass that's over 12 inches, they're still gonna enforce.
Sure. Yeah.
What does contact look like? Is that a letter or a knock on the door, or how do they engage?
Yeah, so it's always a letter, so we can document. Sometimes it is being able to talk to the person knocking on the door. In those cases, we usually try to have two folks at the same time, just for a safety precaution. And sometimes, depending on the neighborhood, if there's a leader, we're not able to get a hold of someone that's talking to that neighborhood leader, hey, do you know where so-and-so is? So we can be facilitated with a connection.
Is the response normally positive?
It's code enforcement, so yes and no. Sometimes, I think when you get to the point where people understand it's about education and compliance is about taking pride in our neighborhood together, and you have time for that conversation, it's positive. When you just get the letter in the mail, it doesn't feel as positive.
I think it's really important during the planning process, not just for residential development, but for commercial, because I've seen this a lot, and I've made phone calls to the people here in the city who's been able to work with the business owners. But when I guess the plan says, when we develop this property, we're gonna have these trees and we're gonna do this, this, and this, and then it's not maintained. Well, that's not what our development regulations are about, and they need to understand that you have to maintain this stuff. It's very similar to, well, the grass has gotten to, you got to plant grass, but it can't be 12 inches or more. In commercial environments, I've seen a lot of, especially with the trees and the shrubs and things like that, they let voluntary stuff take over and that kind of thing. But I think that would be, what the way you're heading is good, really good.
Especially in those areas that butt up against residential.
Yeah.
How a lot of the boundaries are not maintained, and then, so I get a lot of calls from residents that say, is there something that we can do? And sometimes you can connect them with the property owner and they'll do it, but, then inevitably, sometimes I guess they reach out to your department and then they get engaged from there, but it can be frustrating if.
It's like a privacy fence.
Right.
A privacy fence looks great when they go up, but after they've been up a while, they start to look ragged if they're not maintained, and they need to be maintained.
And some of the reports that you mentioned that could be potential, will these hit more on quality of life, or will they have an actual economic development aspect to it as well?
My personal preference, it would be a list of criterion like that, but I think that's where we would want council guidance as we moved forward.
I think the bulk of our community would be happy to hear you say that we were going to stay the course for a while, but as a continuing, growing community, we're going to be faced with challenges in the future and opportunities, certainly. how do we mix or blend our effort as we move forward? And I think it was sprinkled throughout your presentation this evening to keep our community relevant in terms of taking advantage of what we see in changes in housing styles and needs and all the other things that are taking place right now in urban development for the most part. How do we continue to keep our community and our neighborhoods feeling together while we address the changes that we'll see in the future in how we live and where we live and what that entails?
That's a really good question. Cliff Notes answer is that there's probably a three-pronged approach. One of them is using that housing study to inform what's missing as a gap. The second is using community engagement to understand needs that weren't captured in that assessment report. And then I think the third is using our toolkit. As planners, we are part of a professional organization that is 60,000 people, and we are able to draw on the resources of what other communities have done that have worked and have not worked across the country. And so I think a three-pronged approach is the Cliff Notes version, though we could probably talk about that for days on end.
I'm sure we could. Thank you. Others? We appreciate the information. Look forward to seeing this unfold over the next 5 years.
Great. Thank you.
Well, you want to follow that up, Mr. Administrator?
Nope, but I will. Well, Alex, thank you. Well done. Reno, appreciate you helping guide this process, and of course to all our planning and development staff here to support Alex. Thank you all for being here. Few things. The Greer PD has been hosting for 14 years now the Upstate South Carolina Law Enforcement Memorial Softball Tournament at Century Park. This is a nonprofit organization committed to assisting the families of fallen upstate South Carolina police officers. It has been kind of one of those events like Cops for Tots that our PD really looks forward to, and not just the PD, but our community as well. So congratulations to them for their hard work on that and getting that another great event accomplished. Just by way of reminder, on Friday, we are scheduled to go to the Public Safety Training Facility if you're available to do a tour of that. So refer back to emails for time and location. The sesquicentennial anniversary of this fine city is coming up. And one of the first steps in planning the year-long celebration is finding the right image, the branding to mark the milestone. So the city is actually looking for a designer to create a standout logo and brand kit for the city's sesquicentennial. We are asking interested designers to submit an application by September 5th with a portfolio and some brand concept, and we will interview the 3 finalists the week of the 15th. So we are leaning heavily into that exciting time. And finally, tomorrow morning at 10, we will have the groundbreaking for the Sports and Event Center. If you've not been by the site, you will be surprised to see the work that has already been completed. Construction fencing is going up, but we look forward to having a great crowd tomorrow to celebrate this big event. I want to go ahead and I know it'll go off without a hitch, but I want to thank Michelle Willis and her team and Debbie for putting this together. And then everybody else from public services to planning to PD and fire and all points in between. This is a big event. We're very excited about it. So look forward to seeing y'all tomorrow for the groundbreaking. Mr. Mayor, Council, that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Council, let's move to items of old business before us this evening. The first of which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 15-2025. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of certain properties owned by Greenville Hospital System located on South Buncombe Road, West Road, and South Main Street from commercial, general, to office, professional, to regional center. Ms. Cotty joins us for that conversation. Floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I do not have any updates, but I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Comes with no new or additional information. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So
No
moved.
motion.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion. Questions? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, the second item before us this evening is the second and final reading of ordinance number 16-2025. This is an ordinance amending Chapter 18 Businesses of the City of Greer Code of Ordinances by amending Article 12 Mobile Food Units, Section 18-501 through Section 18-524 to establish certain rules and regulations for mobile food units. Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Wanted to highlight some changes from first reading to second reading. Section 18-513, subsection G, we did change from 10 years, which was originally proposed in the first reading, down to 5 years. We added language in subsection J. In section 18-514, we struck multiple subsections, which does include subsections E, F, G, H, I, J, L, M, and O. This information essentially is already covered or referenced in the city's UDO, so kind of consolidating that, and which was added to the subsection J in section 18-513. That concludes the changes made from the first reading. I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Comes as a recommendation. I'll entertain a motion to receive
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
In subsection G, did you misspeak and say 5 or did you mean 10? 'Cause I'm saying-
No, sir. Originally proposed was 5 year or 10 years during the first reading. We're proposing to you all, it's on second reading tonight, 5 years.
Am I reading this wrong? Am I looking at the wrong thing? I thought, it looks like it says 10 and 10.
Struck. Struck through.
Maybe I'm looking at the wrong version. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions?
I noticed that they just recently passed some new regs. Was it Greenville County?
On the food trucks?
Yeah. I don't remember if it was Greenville or Spartanburg County. One of the two counties just passed some new regulations. I think it was Greenville.
Yeah, I hadn't seen
But
that.
we don't have to worry about anything they say. It would be state,
This
if
is,
anything.
yeah, any of the health stuff, we're not involved in. This is just licensing as it pertains to these mobile food truck units in the city limits.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And they still got to move it every day.
And that's much of what he referenced that was struck
Yeah.
was it was a redundant, it was redundant in the ordinance and it was moved to the UDO. So the UDO is going to govern some of this stuff. Yes, sir.
Further questions?
The only thing, and this may have already come up, are the food trucks checked like restaurants? Do they get graded like A, B, or
They
anything
do.
like that?
The Department of Public Health, I think, what it is now, does govern the food safety component of it. We look at it from, our fire team looks at it, and then, of course, planning verifies it, and then we do the business licensing side of it.
Well, now that I got the correct version pulled up here, I just want to thank y'all for working on this so much.
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
it's a good, fair option, for sure.
Definitely.
Yes, thank you for hearing the feedback and making the adjustments.
Absolutely.
Further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Airwood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Council, let's move to item 3, the second and final reading of ordinance number 18-2025. This is an ordinance to provide for the annexation of a certain property owned by True North Properties LLC located on Cold Brook Drive by 100% petition and to establish a zoning classification of traditional neighborhood for said property. Ms. Cotty joins us for this conversation. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Planning Commission held a public hearing at its meeting last Monday and recommended approval.
This motion comes with approval from the Planning Commission?
Planning Commission and staff
And
recommend
staff.
approval. Yes, sir.
Comes with a recommendation. I'll entertain a motion to receive
So moved.
and a second. Ms. Albert? Yes, okay.
Yeah.
With that, the floor is open for discussion or questions. Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, let's move to the last item of old business, which is the second and final reading of ordinance number 19-2025. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of certain properties owned by RMM Enterprises LLC located at 306 East Frontage Road from commercial corridor to manufacturing logistics. Ms. Cotty?
I do not have any updates on this case, but happy to answer any questions.
Comes to us for second reading. Without further comments, I'll entertain a motion to receive
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
This is the property that wanted to do the laydown yard, I believe?
Yes, sir.
Gotcha, okay.
Questions? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let's move to items of new business, the first of which is the first and final reading of Resolution 17-2025. This is a resolution approving and consenting to the transfer and partial assignment by C.P. Greer LLC to an assumption by IPCP Acquisition Company for LLC and any of its related or affiliated entities of a certain existing amended and restated economic development agreement to which the city is a party in other matters relating thereto. Only Mr. Reno Deaton can explain this. He joins us this evening for the first and final reading of Resolution 17-2025. Floor is yours, sir.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to clarify. This is a request on behalf of the Clarius Group relative to their industrial development here in the City of Greer off of Highway 80. Clarius is ready to sell one of those buildings in that multi-building industrial park development. You may recall when that project landed here in Greer, we incented that project with a development agreement. It's very typical in those instances when the organization sells to another institutional investor to assign a portion of that economic development agreement to the new purchaser. And that's this request this evening, to assign a portion of that economic development agreement to the new purchaser for one of the buildings in the Clarius development.
Comes with a recommendation. I'll entertain a motion to receive
So moved.
and a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion or questions.
That was so succinct.
Thank you.
This thing is so
I'll work with
involved.
the subscribers to write the next one.
You done good.
So others.
These agreements, I think you've said this once before, that however long we incent the project, it is transferable to the next owner or the next after that until
With
that.
your consent. It doesn't add any time to the term of the agreement, so the original term of the agreement stays in place, but it simply transfers the benefits to the new owner.
And if we were not to approve this, what happens?
Armageddon. Just kidding. It's, certainly our developers rely upon us to sort of keep our promises. We entered into an agreement for a term of years on this project to back off of that agreement relative to a new purchaser was send a signal to the development community that we're not sort of development friendly. It's not atypical. In fact, it's really a standard practice for developers to hold for a certain period of time and to sell to a next sort of investor. It would really chill our development in the city of Greer.
And we would have avoided the original agreement if they didn't meet their end of the bargain. It says in here that it was a $27.6 million investment, so we confirmed that already. And
That's correct. They met all of the preconditions for the incentive.
good.
Others?
Is this the only component, or is there a county component they have to go through as well?
If they have a separate agreement with the county, a fee and loan taxes agreement, for example, the county would have to act to also transfer that agreement.
Questions? Discussion? Comments? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Council, let's move to the second item before us this evening, first reading of ordinance number 21-2025. This is an ordinance to change the zoning classification of a certain property owned by Blake of Atour located at 105 Crestview Circle from rural residential to suburban neighborhood. Ms. Cotty?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is a rezoning request. It is currently zoned rural residential, formerly R20 before our zoning map updates. They are requesting suburban neighborhood. This is an aerial map of the property. Again, it's at the cul-de-sac at the end of Crestview Circle. Our current zoning map, again, the surrounding neighborhood uses are either rural residential or unincorporated county. The future land use map calls for traditional neighborhood. Existing conditions on the ground as they are today. And then here is a comparison of rural residential standards and suburban neighborhood standards. The requester was having trouble meeting setbacks, both rear and side, for the rural residential zoning, so that's why they're requesting the rezoning. Given the size of the lot and the lot frontage, this, if it were successfully rezoned, it could not be subdivided. So again, this is just mostly for setback relief. In terms of staff analysis, the surrounding land uses are all zoned and used as residential. The comprehensive plan actually calls for traditional neighborhood, which is even more dense and less setbacks due to its proximity to Wade Hampton. So staff does recommend approval. Planning Commission held a public hearing last Monday evening and also recommended approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
By show of hand, is the owner of the property or representative of the owner of the property with us this evening? Are you available for questions if they arise? Okay, thank you. Comes with a recommendation. I'll entertain a motion to receive for the purpose of discussion.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Floor is open for discussion.
Doesn't have anything to do with this particular property, but on the last three maps, I've noticed at the bottom, it says City of Greenville, comma, ESRI, and that's, what is that?
ESRI is Esri, so that's our GIS.
Why does it say City of Greenville?
I am not certain because we used ours. Is it in the exhibits or on our slides?
Yeah, it's in the exhibits.
Oh, it's in the map itself. I see what you're saying, yeah.
I'm not certain, but
I might be able to speak to that as well. Go for it. These GIS exhibits were made with our GIS system, and we pull a lot of our data from Greenville County, as I understand it. In terms of the details, I would have to defer to our GIS team and Derek Lark. But we did use this, or make these exhibits with the City of Greer's system. So I believe those little notes there at the bottom of the exhibits are just a reference to where the data is being pulled from.
So we pulled data from City of Greenville?
I believe it's usually Greenville County. I'm not entirely sure as to why it says City of Greenville.
Well, if we have to make footnotes as to where the data came from, we better make sure it's correct because it says City of Greenville.
Yes, sir, and that is all generally auto-generated as well, based on the data layers that we have included in the map. It'll all be accurate, I would think.
I think the point is to confirm that for us, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Others?
Well, I can speak to the character of the Vatours. I know these folks well. Blake's dad, Tim, just built a really nice house right up at the top of the hill from us, and it has been a really nice addition to our neighborhood, and I'm convinced that whatever product Blake puts on the ground will be comparable and super nice and will add a lot of value to the neighborhood, and we look forward to having you.
Others? Questions? Comments? Further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Council, the last item of business before us this evening is the first reading of ordinance number 22-2025. This is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer Unified Development Ordinance. You have a overview in your agenda here. Ms. Cotty joins us for this conversation. I think it best we just go ahead and move straight to Ms. Cotty for an explanation as we move forward with ordinance number 22-2025. Floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight is the third round of amendments for the Unified Development Ordinance. We took this to Planning Commission back in June. We've been further refining and staff capacity. It's taken a while to get to you. So what you have with you in front of you tonight is a table that summarizes the amendment topic, the change that's been made, a very brief justification of why, as well as the article reference and the page number that you can find that on. We also printed out just the pages with the changes instead of the full Exhibit A, and you should have those at your seats. So again, just to start, this is a summary table of the amendments. We're going to go through each one. Please feel free to stop me at any time and ask questions. I would ask that if there is some debate that we would get consensus from council on whether or not you'd like to see revisions before second reading, to give us a little bit of guidance to prep for second reading. So up first, we will start with the topic of review and decision-making bodies. We added criteria for special exceptions and updated the language for variances to reference the Enabling Act. So the Enabling Act does not have criteria for special exceptions. It does for variances. So again, that was kind of an oversight. The code referenced the act. So we did add some criteria, again, that it met conditions that are in the code, that the use is consistent with the character and intent of the underlying zoning district, that it's compatible with permitted uses, and that it won't adversely affect the public. And then again, we did add a reference to the Enabling Act. So this is for our Board of Zoning Appeals, who hears variances and special exceptions. Special exceptions are certain uses that are sometimes allowed by right. These are allowed after consideration by the Board of Zoning Appeals.
How do you define adversely affect public health, and especially the general welfare?
I mean, it's very subjective. I'll be honest, it is subjective. Staff would consider whether that's noxious odors, whether that would be noise, whether that would be intensity of uses, its proximity to residential. We would take into account a number of factors.
Is that proper for a legal document that it's so open-ended?
It is very common language used in ordinances. We did research several other jurisdictions, including surrounding jurisdictions, pulled together the most common criteria, and then, kind of made what made sense for Greer out of those.
I would think that would probably be the suggested usage, just because if you had to list everything that might affect public health or general welfare, it'd probably be onerous to have in there anyway. So I'm not sure that wouldn't be an appropriate way to describe this at this point.
And all of these amendments, just so you know, were reviewed by the city attorney.
And this is for somebody asking for an exception to something that we would otherwise not allow.
Yes, so uses are either allowed by right, not allowed, or allowed sometimes, given special exception. So typically, we would err on the side of they're most often appropriate, but there may be cases where they're not and deserve kind of an extra look. We have an upcoming case with Board of Zoning Appeals that is a special exception for a flex facility in commercial corridor. And given the location on heavily traveled thoroughfare and the surrounding zoning, it makes sense. But if it were a commercial corridor zone property flanked by single-family residential, might not make sense. Or it may make sense with additional conditions. So it really is a case-by-case basis.
Others? We'll move on.
So the next is also with the review and decision-making bodies. This is adding a provision for Planning Commission review timeline. This was a request from a council member and the city attorney who provided the language, just to make sure we are covered if Planning Commission were to table an item, to make sure that they have adequate time to review and that it would not be considered an automatic approval.
What section, we're on, what page is that? I've already read it, but I'm gonna make sure that, okay, we went to 90 days, correct?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
there's language now that says adequate time, a reasonable extension of time not to exceed 90 days.
Okay, so I think this was all generated when we had a development and the developer did not show up for the hearings. And I believe it went on more than 3 months, correct?
Yes.
So that would mean that the development would, even under these regulations, be approved.
It is possible. It is the opinion of staff and the city attorney that by tabling the item, that Planning Commission is taking action, but this language is additional enforcement.
It would seem to me that you wouldn't even put the 90-day limit on there. I mean, I know that our attorney has looked at it and he should know more than I, but
I'm happy to ask him to have another look. I believe this was initiated by your questions to him, and he did provide the language, but I'm happy to check in with him.
that'd be great by second reading.
So you're proposing that 90 should be the drop dead? Mr. Airwood?
Well, the way the state law reads is that if you, Mayor Rick Danner, proposes to build something, a subdivision, and you submit everything to the City of Greer. I believe the law holds the Planning Commission to 30 days to make a decision. If the decision is not made or recommendation made to go to council, it's automatically approved. So when I question this, because of there was a development on Tryon Street where the developer did not show up and for a greater period of 90 days, the Planning Commission just every time held it over. And the way I'm looking at this is that the developer just stonewalled and said, I'm not going to come. I'm not going to be there, period, which does not allow for, in my opinion, proper questioning by the Planning Commission or the public during the public hearing. It would seem to me the way that this is written, and maybe my interpretation is wrong, but if they stonewall don't show up for 90 days, then it's automatically approved.
Well, that would be if they didn't submit a recommendation. So they always do have, it is their right to make a recommendation without speaking to the applicant. They can make that recommendation based on public hearing testimony, based on staff recommendation, and use of our decision-making tools, our comprehensive plan. It's very rare, but again, I certainly can have our city attorney see about an extended timeline.
I mean, they could request a table if they had need to have conversation with a developer and they weren't present.
Yes, that is what they typically do now.
Right. And the issue you're saying, Jay, is that if that process goes on for over 90 days,
well, that's the way it reads.
The way the ordinance is written right now, if
Yeah,
they don't
if it
submit
goes
their recommendation.
91st day, it's according to regulations, it's stamped as I guess it would be come to us.
Yes.
Then to be voted on.
regardless if the planning commission votes on it or not?
If they do vote and submit a recommendation to you, it would be whatever their vote is. But if they kept tabling or didn't make a decision, then the way it's written, it would come to you with a recommendation of approval.
But we would be advised by you that it came without a recommendation from
Yes, sir, absolutely.
the planning commission, would it not?
Yes.
No, it would have to come with a recommendation, wouldn't it?
Yes, but I could alert you that it was a default
Yes,
recommendation.
yeah, that's exactly right. I think that would be a function of just how it's presented as any other item. It was, the fact of the matter is that the applicant did not come to a planning commission meeting for a period of 90 days. Planning commission, by code, was required to provide it to council, the recommendation of approval. However, they did not take formal action on that particular matter. So Ashley would say to you, in this case, it comes to you with a staff recommendation of approval and a planning commission default approval due to inaction.
The only thing I would add to what I have said is that as I've been talking, I'm hearing myself, and it's in a negative context that the developer doesn't want to provide the information we're asking. But what if, for whatever reason, it is a good development and the developer or a representative of the developer does not attend? I think it would be okay if we just struck the 90 days, but
Yeah, because I guess the converse to that would be, what if he gets 60 days in and then he finds out his bank's changing hands and he's got to refinance this project or something, and he knows it's going to be another 90 days before. At that point, if he asks for it to be tabled at that point, would that be Would that be legal notice that we would start the clock over again, or is it just, if something is tabled at that point, what happens?
I believe that when it came to council, council could make the choice to table it.
We could table it and hold it over, knowing that there was extenuating circumstances. Is that correct? Okay, that's fine. I got no problem with that.
City attorney to verify that, but I believe that's correct.
Okay. So you would prefer to strike the 90 days?
If our attorney says that it needs to be in there, as long as we have, as long as whoever's sitting at council has notification that this is what's going on, we're in compliance. Now it becomes council's decision to approve or deny, then I'm okay with that.
Okay, let's just make a footnote to run that by our attorney, and then we'll go from there in second reading. How about that?
Absolutely. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
So the next amendment topic is zoning district standards. The action is to reduce sidewalk width from 10 feet, to 8 feet in regional center. We've reevaluated this recently. The City of Greer Sports and Events Complex is now zoned regional center. All of the new Prisma Complex is now zoned regional center. So now that we're actually reviewing projects, we've just taken a look at that, and it does seem to be a little strict. So we've revised it to be in line with the requirements for our downtown core. I'm going to move forward, but you guys feel free to stop me. The next amendment is related to our overlays. I only copied one, but the same language is in all three overlays. It has to do with wall signage. It reduces the maximum building sign percentage from 10% to 8%. Typically, overlays are stricter than the rest of our ordinance standards. And the rest of our ordinance are 8%, so we are just making it consistent with our ordinance in the historic district, the downtown transitional, and the downtown entryway overlay.
Council? All right.
So the answer to the why question is we're just going to change it because we don't have a, you
Well,
don't
I mean,
have a reason is because the way
I
it
don't-
looks, or it's the way it, I mean, just to change it doesn't seem proper.
Well, I think we've decided as a whole with the ordinance that 8% is a more appropriate total percentage for wall signs. So having the overlays match the rest of the city versus being more allowing seems appropriate to staff, but again, we're happy to amend. Or if you'd like to consider keeping the 10% in the overlay and then changing the wall signs for the overall city to 10, I think that would be appropriate as well.
And this is just for the historic district overlay?
It's for the historic district, the downtown transitional, and the downtown entryway. So those are our three overlays. So they're basically the core of downtown and then the spine roads coming into downtown.
But this just affects wall signs, correct?
Yes, sir.
But we still can't have a sign that rotates.
No, you can't have
No,
any kind
sir.
of lights or rotation on.
No.
People might know you're open.
I guess.
Go to Hilton Head.
No, thank you.
All right, let's move forward.
Okay, the next is a use table and description. This is adding a line for manufacturing and mobile home in the permitted use table. This was just inadvertently left out. We have separate uses for mobile home and mobile home park, and only mobile home park was initially in the permitted use table. so it is adding it. And then also updating the language to require a special exception with mobile homes being permitted only in mobile home parks. So this is a standard that was in our zoning ordinance that just, again, inadvertently wasn't carried over to the UDO, but it has been the city's practice and policy as long as I've been here.
Do we have, how many designated mobile home parks do we have?
I believe 3.
3? And as the mobile homes age out, are we allowing new homes to come in if they're still designated mobile home
Within the
park?
park? Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It would just be if there is a traditional neighborhood zoned property that has an existing mobile home, if they were to move it off, they would not be able to move a new one on.
And there's, I guess, improved screening, like underpinning and different elements that have to happen with new units that are brought onto the, or into the mobile home park?
Yes, we do have a whole separate section, Article 7.5, that talks about the special exception standards for mobile home parks. And it does have different requirements about the foundations, the screening, setbacks, and minimum size. So if we were to have any new proposed mobile home parks, they would be subject to those standards. We're not going to go back and make existing mobile home parks add a buffer, but any new park would be subject to those standards.
It's not pertinent to our current conversation here. A home that parts of it are manufactured off-site, is that a modular home? Would that fall under a modular home?
Most likely. So we do have definitions of mobile home. We do have definitions of modular. A lot of times we have to bring in our residential plan reviewer and our chief building official to help planning staff determine whether it is in fact a mobile home or a modular home. But typically, yes, that would be modular versus manufactured.
Okay.
I think a modular, isn't it, is constructed to the regular building code.
Yeah, and it's, the one I saw today, it was basically stick-built that
Yes,
was
right.
being brought in on trucks and craned off.
Right. And then a mobile home is, I think,
Yeah.
they're governed by HUD.
Yeah.
I believe that's right.
Yes, that
Okay.
is correct.
Thank you.
So how is manufactured different from modular? How does manufactured fit in there? What is it? That would be a modular
I'd
home,
honestly
wouldn't it?
have to look at our definition.
I think a
We
manufacturer's
typically
built in
ask the
factory,
building inspector
and the
to
modular is
look
just
at the
built on the property.
specs.
I don't see the difference.
You don't see the difference.
I suspect that the difference is truly in the definition, probably. I don't, I mean, I don't know.
Brought in,
I
but a
know what mobile home
modular is built on the property.
manufactured and modular. What's the difference?
Well, modular is actually put on the property, piece by piece.
What's manufactured?
It's built in Tennessee or someplace and brought in. As a whole, not put together.
You can't move a whole house like that.
Let's, well, given tiny homes, you probably could move an entire home,
Well, some of them.
yeah.
Well, and
let's-
even tiny homes
let's-
do
let's
have
make
to
a
still
footnote.
meet international
Yeah. Let's,
residential
just for
building
the,
code.
just for the sake of conversation, let's just make a footnote for the difference between manufactured, or the definition of manufactured as opposed to mobile home. Thank you.
Okay, the next is another use table, changing automotive service from permitted to restricted and commercial general. So this would be limiting very auto-centric intense uses to our commercial corridor zoning versus our commercial general. We do have quite a few commercial general on some of our minor thoroughfares. Poinsett, we do have quite a few that are adjacent to residential. So again, just limiting those auto-centric uses to our more intense zoned commercial pieces.
What about the businesses like you talked about on Poinsett that already exist?
So they would be grandfathered in. They would be considered legal non-conforming. If they ceased use for more than 90 days, they would not be allowed to reestablish. But if they were sold and had a CO or pulled a permit within 90 days, they would be allowed to continue.
But otherwise, it would revert to what?
They would only be allowed in commercial corridor, so our more intense commercial zoned districts.
But if the existing business went out of business for over 90 days, then that property would revert to a different zoning?
It doesn't revert to a different zoning, it's just that use would no longer be grandfathered in. So it could be used, just any use that's allowed in commercial general.
Okay.
And the businesses you're referring to, page 100, it is wholesale trade, recycling, self-storage. Those are the ones you're referring to?
Yeah, automobile service.
Page 98.
I think it's on, yeah, I was gonna say it's before that one. That would typically be like car repair, oil changes.
Oh, I see. So on Poinsett, if, let me just make this more specific then. Automobile service, which would be tire changing,
Tire change, oil change, body work, like a caliber collision type, any kind of service work on the auto.
I don't know the name of it now, but used to be Smiley's.
Rear tire.
Greer Tire. So that would be a prohibited use?
It would be grandfathered.
Be grandfathered?
Yes, sir.
And if somebody bought the property, if they wanted to use it for the same, they could?
Yes, as long as they applied for a CO within 90 days of it ceasing to be the former or pulled a permit to do work on the property.
And on the 90 days, is there an exception to that rule?
Not that I'm aware of, but what type of exception?
A natural disaster comes through, tears down Greer Tire and a lot of other things. It takes 30 days just to get utilities back up.
Yeah, there would most likely be a permit on file for that, or we'd just encourage them to pull a permit. So, and then they would have 6 months to follow through with the permit. So, I mean, we work with companies. It's really just more for if you don't have it anymore and this property is sitting vacant, and you're not going to be allowed to continue that use. But we have had several that have turned over ownership in the past, and we work with them. They either apply for a CO or they apply for a permit.
Well, I'm talking about if the building's destroyed.
Well, same, you'd still apply for a permit for a building
If a tornado
permit.
took out a legal non-conforming building,
Yep.
obviously they're going to want to rebuild. We would have to say, well, come pull a permit, and the clock ticks for 60 days or 6 months. We would not use that as leverage to push them out. That would not be the intent. And in a force majeure type situation like that, we would work with them to get them back on the feet. And the 90 days is 90 days. If I just decided to close up shop, then on that 91st day, that property could not be used for that legal non-conforming anymore.
And I know we will do this, but let's say it's a business that we don't necessarily like.
Or it's a council that's not quite so compassionate.
Right. I mean, it's not in writing anywhere. It's,
Well, it is, if they come pull a permit. I mean, if they come pull a permit to rebuild, then the clock starts ticking. They got 6 months to do it. So that's not,
and we would reach out to all the businesses that were affected like that.
I don't know that we would reach out to any business necessarily. I think the fact of the matter is that they're protected, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're protected in this particular case is if a tornado tears down the building, they can come in and regardless of whether it's a auto body shop or a factory chicken farm or some other kind of noxious use that we don't want to see there, if they come in and pull the permit, it's going to remain.
Even if they don't have any documentation on what they need for a permit, like engineered drawings.
Well, they would have 90 days to pull that together, right?
Yes, I mean, we would reject a permit if it didn't submit what they needed. So yes, they would have to submit.
Yeah, they're not just
plan
coming in
review.
and writing permit on a piece of paper and going, now I got 90 days.
I just like to think through everything, and
I understand,
but
I understand.
There's also a difference between non-conforming use and non-conforming structure. So typically the use, again, is more about it being used. The structure, non-conforming would be more like it doesn't conform to setbacks or it,
Well, I think that's a good
something else.
qualifying
But
point.
so there would be
We're
a
talking
lot of
uses here.
factors at play. It can be really complicated, but
If they had a non-conforming sign that got wiped out, could they put that back up?
no,
Why not?
because it was removed.
By Mother Nature there. That's not fair. If you had that sign, you should be able to put it back.
Well, that's something we can consider if you guys would like that. That is not the way our
Well, this is a
ordinance
use,
currently reads.
but I think what she was trying to qualify is the fact there's a use and a structure. We're talking use.
And typically it is that the business goes out of business or they're selling to someone. And if there's closing dates, again, that are 97 days out, we'll say, apply for your CO. At the 60, 70-day mark, we'll start doing inspections.
I hate to use Greer Tire, but if that building got wiped out and they immediately said, we're going to rebuild, they're going to be held to a different standard than that building was, right?
I think the construction standard probably.
Even though that type building's not allowed
Greer
there.
Tire, is that this one or is that Poinsett?
Points out.
It's on Poinsett in the
Yeah,
Kirk.
well, there's
It's
lots of issues.
possible.
Yeah, there's lots of issues around that. I mean, the setback on that building would never work now. So, I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Would they be allowed
Yeah.
to do what they do now?
I don't know. How often do we run into this situation? At this point, if this is something that council feels compelled enough to disagree with, then let's so note it, and we'll vote individually on each one of these next time they come before us in second reading, and we'll vote it up or down.
Well, the only thing I would say to that is that, we've promoted ourselves as being business friendly. We want to make things work. And although the things that we are speaking of right now are the probability of it happening is low, but when you don't have a provision in place for that, then you get, well, the building doesn't conform to setbacks. It's never been an issue before, except our regulations make it an issue. And I think there's always, there needs to be some sort of way for the business or whatever to say, hey, they're going to have to, they will have to build back to building code. That's a given. But the things like setbacks, the things like signage, just because our regulations say we don't like a certain sign, we're not going to let you put it back, that kind of thing. I think that.
Well, wouldn't some of the foundation kind of still be there? I mean, that you
Well,
would just.
it doesn't, the foundation wouldn't matter it's just,
That he could put it back where the foundation was?
I would hate to
and
put
the
someone out of
plumbing?
business that has been a good corporate citizen for years. That would be, that would just
Yeah,
not be right.
I agree.
And it may not be that this is where maybe it should have been the consultants we paid all the money to that did add something at the end of the UDO that says, okay, if you have issues, this is how you rectify that.
I mean, our language does have very clear guidance for non-conforming uses and non-conforming structures. And the way our ordinance reads now is that if it's damaged beyond a certain percent or completely gone, or if a sign is removed, you can't put it back if it doesn't conform. That is very standard.
And why? Was the question asking as to why?
Well, our ordinance language is there for a reason. It's what we want to see in our city. So if it's gone, then why would we let them put it back a way that we don't want it to be?
Well, again, I hate to keep going back to Greer Tire, but I've never gotten a complaint about the looks of Greer Tire.
That's just part of Greer.
And you probably, with the 0 rear setback like it has now, you probably couldn't do that now.
Right.
And like Rick said, you couldn't put cars out front if you had to bring that building forward, so they're kind of out of luck.
Sounds like there may be a desire for historical exceptions. I don't know.
You can't, if you were in that position, we don't have any means to petition to get around it, do you?
There's potential for variances if
There
the
is.
lot is too shallow to reasonably accommodate a building.
So
Then yes, it
the option
could.
for a variance does exist.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay.
But if it could reasonably be placed on the property somewhere else that did meet our standards, they would need to do that. But if the way the lot is shaped, if they had it there for a reason, then they could apply for a variance. It's very hard to give a hypothetical.
Well, that was,
So-
I mean, that was a 2-lane road when that building was built. I mean, it was 50 feet back from the road. At this point, it's whatever the length of a car and a half is. I mean, it doesn't make sense that a building ought to go back there in some regards.
You would hate to take away somebody's livelihood because of circumstances they had no control over, widening the road or natural disaster tearing down the building.
I get that, but we're using one particular case here where I don't know that a building can go back on there. I mean, there's.
And I understand that. I understand that completely. That's why I'm saying that thought needs to be put into how someone can go about, because there's sometimes you can't go for a variance, correct?
I mean, you have to meet the legal criteria.
Which means there are sometimes you can't go for a variance. The only way you could do it is actually through civil court and take your chances that way, correct?
Well, the Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial body, so appeals beyond that go to the circuit court. Yes.
That's right.
That's right.
I think maybe that a city or our city attorney should probably be asked to think about that.
He charges for that.
I mean, it's really up to council. Again, staff would recommend keeping the regulations as they are. The UDA lays out what we want to see in the city. So if something happened to a property and they had to redevelop, we would want to see it redeveloped to the standards in the UDO. Now, if the property is super shallow and there's no way to build without having a variance on the front setback or rear setback, then yes, it would be eligible for a variance. But if it could be built upon, then they should do it to our standards, is staff's recommendation. And that is the most common language you will find in ordinances all over the country. However, it's your decision. It's council's decision.
I would recommend that our attorney take this subject and try to put some kind of solution together, because
Well, you can probably get some pretty good feedback from Western North Carolina right now, some of those towns, and see how they're handling it.
well, for instance, let's say we have a sign and it's I don't know, maybe it's not considered historical, but we think it is.
Iconic.
And we like it. But we know that there's signs that we like that somebody said that that the city doesn't want those.
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily true. We like that particular sign right there. So maybe we should, I think that the city attorney ought to look at this to try to give relief.
Agreed.
We'll think through it.
Okay. Does anybody have concerns with this actual change, though? The automobile services being not allowed in commercial general?
Are we doing a good job tracking as tire place goes down? I mean, is there a good like, how do we even know someone has stopped being a tire shop? Because I can think of like 5 in my district. I'm like,
Like business licenses
Yeah.
typically. We check fire marshal inspections. Again, we're not gonna know the day you shut your shop. So most likely they're gonna have more than 90 days anyway.
because I'm on the opposite end of some of what they're saying, because I see some of them are, in their heyday, they were probably great, but now other folks have come in and they've turned into more of a blighted situation. And
You're exactly right. That's why I think there needs to be something to address each case as it arises.
Okay, well, we can explore that opportunity. The next is another use and table description, updating the allowances for regional retail square footage over 50,000 to be allowed by right in commercial corridor and by special exception in commercial general, not permitted in neighborhood center. We also edited the description to remove square footage limitations. So it doesn't matter how large it is as long as it would meet the setbacks of the zoning district. So this came about when staff tried to apply the code to several cases. The regulations just didn't seem to make sense. We took a look at several existing commercial centers, including the neighborhood market up at Middleton. Even that neighborhood market for Walmart is more than 50,000 square feet, and that is a perfectly appropriate use for a corridor commercial. So again, sometimes when you apply the code, you realize you didn't get it right, so.
Say that again?
So sometimes when you apply the code, you realize you didn't get it right, and that's why we bring amendments. I think I told you guys when we adopted the UDO, you would be seeing amendments. It was a huge wholesale change, and noting where things don't work is perfectly normal. You should see the packets Greenville City gets every 2 months to amend their UDO. Hundreds of pages, so.
Thank you for being
So
diligent.
yeah, we'll own it. We messed up, so
Okay.
trying to get it right.
Well, we need to be asking money back from that blame consultant.
And you know, what we understood when we undertook this
It's a work in progress.
3 or 4 years ago was that it was going to be a work in progress. And I think that we're at that point. And while we may not all agree on every recommendation that has come before us, you know, we've noted some things for either more information or approval or whatever it takes. It'll come back before us again on a second reading with that information, and we'll go from there.
question, where does smoke or vape shops lie under uses?
Currently, they're just considered retail.
Is there a way we could consider them, kind of like we do liquor, microbrewery,
We
as a separate
absolutely
line
could,
item?
if that is something that you guys are interested in. We do call out tattoo parlors, I believe, different than other personal services. I believe we call out liquor differently than other retail. So if that's something you guys would be interested, we could absolutely explore that. I mean, it would have to be the next round of amendments. We can't, we didn't have a public hearing on that, but we could absolutely look at defining a specific use and then giving it its own line in the permitted use table and identifying which zoning districts it would be allowed in.
And that would be a great example of where, now that we're digging in a little bit deeper on this, it may be something you want to bring before council.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, another use table description, another one where we just missed it and got it wrong. Mr. Bettis was adding light industrial to be allowed in business and technology. Again, there are no properties actually zoned business and technology right now. It was like regional center. It's a new zoning district that has yet to be utilized. But again, when we're going through applying uses and looking at the table, we notice things that don't quite make sense. So this would just be to allow light industrial uses in our business and technology zones.
What is the M in, underlined M, for solar farm? Underline M and then mark through N?
Oh, it was the formatting, the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. When we messed with one of them, it changed the formatting for all of the letters. That's how they're, kind of like an outline format. That's how they're listed in the code. So that's their reference to the article and section. So it's more of a formatting than a content.
Fine.
So is this a proactive change? It wasn't generated by a customer? Okay.
No.
Which is good. So kudos for that, at least.
Okay, landscaping. The proposal is to lower landscape requirements slightly for planted median dividers within parking lots. Instead of every single row having to have a median divider, we're proposing to have every 4. So this would be, I think of a large Target or Home Depot parking lot. Instead of making them have every single row have a median divider, it would be every 4. Again, to break up the sea of parking, improve tree canopy, and reduce heat effects. But again, once you applied it, it did feel very onerous for sites that were coming through, especially with smaller developments that only had like 2 or 3 rows of parking total versus 20. And we're also reducing the widths slightly in how they're measured from the outside versus inside. Okay, the next one is open space. It looks like a lot, but mostly we were just taking out the table because we felt like the definitions could capture. We didn't need to list every single possible amenity in active and passive use. Again, doing review for residential projects, staff did not like the way active and passive was defined and didn't feel like it really met our intent. We do want to make sure there's adequate open space in residential developments. But some of the features that were considered passive were like walking trails or natural lawns where you could play Frisbee or something. To us, that is active, and that meets the intent of a development having kind of a mix of those amenities versus natural areas. So again, we just updated the definitions of active and passive, and then we got rid of the table that listed 10 of the possible 100. Any questions or concerns? Okay, for required improvements, updated the regulations related to sidewalks. Here, we just struck the word exterior, so just requiring all sidewalks on a site and in a residential development, both exterior and interior, would be a minimum of 5 feet. Current and zoning ordinance, I believe, was 4, and minimum building code is 4, but anyone who's walked with a stroller or had an aging parent in a wheelchair will know that it's very hard to have two of you. So the next required improvement is related to traffic impact analyses. Hopefully you guys like this change. I really do. One, we're just defining when those improvements have to be in place. So typically those are done at final plat or before you can get your certificate of occupancy. Having it at the grading permit level is very early on. And so typically they're working on those improvements at the same time they're grading and working on the site. So that's just a clarification. And then the addition at the bottom is to define some parameters about TIAs expiring. So what we've seen most recently is we've had several developments that were approved back in 2021 that the plans are approved. So we don't have any mechanism of telling them you can't pull a grading permit. You can't do anything, you can proceed. Unless their permit with formerly DHEC expires and they have to reapply and get site plan approval with us, they could do that. And as you all know, the way we're growing, projects done in 2021, the traffic conditions are not the same in 2025. So we are just proposing that they have to pull either a grading permit within a certain amount of time, or if they let their grading permit expire, that they may be subject to redoing that traffic study. And again, we would consult DOT or our third-party engineer. If it's been 2 years and 1 day, they may look at it and say, their background traffic that was accounted for in the study makes sense. We don't think they need to update it. But this gives us a mechanism to force them to update it if we feel like it's needed.
Good. Seems appropriate.
Got a quick question, and I actually experienced this today on a project where my planning approval, even though the project was under construction, it's not finished yet, was expiring. And I'm in a situation where I have to reapply if we don't finish the project in X amount of days. You have to go through the planning process again.
But here?
No,
Oh,
not
okay.
City of Greer, but it's right next door.
Okay.
Do we have any kind of stipulations like that if a project has been dead or dormant?
Well, we would here. If you haven't pulled the grading permit within a certain period of that plan being approved, then we could make you relook at things.
So what we're talking about now would implement something like that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, which is good. I
But
think
if
it's,
you've pulled your grading permit and you're making active progress, we're not going to all of a sudden make you redo your study.
but it's not
and tell
like the
you-
situation I just described where
Yes.
we're in the middle of,
Yeah. I will say, though, that DOT can do that. They are currently doing that with towns at Abner Creek. So they didn't pull their encroachment permit. So DOT is making them do some improvements, which staff is not opposed to, and I'm sure our council member in that district is not either.
Absolutely.
I can't remember if this is the last one. It's close. So I do, David stayed. Thank you, David. Land suitability, clarifying our language regarding steep slopes and retaining walls on slopes. So when staff applied our code, we felt like it did not sufficiently enforce what our intent was. We were having engineers, David can probably say this better, but so if we said you couldn't have steeper than 3-to-1 slope, the language doesn't quite say that. And if you would say, well, it's 2.9, technically our code doesn't say that, even though that's what we intended it for it to say. So you'll see a lot of redlining on this. Planning staff worked extensively back and forth with engineering department. We used 3 of our current projects to kind of beta test the regulations. And it is to address drainage, safety, and maintenance. We have several residential developments that I'm sure some of you have seen in the city, and we've gotten a lot of complaints about how steep the slopes are in the neighborhood, how that's causing terrible drainage on other people's lots. So the intent is to have no steeper than 3-to-1, and that would be in, nope, am I wrong? 2-to-1 for lots, and then 3-to-1 for open space. See, this is why we consult our engineers. Basically, the steepest areas have to be maintained by the HOA. They have to be open space. They can't be on a residential lot. That is maintenance issues, drainage issues, cause lots of angry phone calls to both planning and stormwater staff. And again, just maintenance. Most homeowners are not going to have the type of equipment that can handle those steep of slopes. An HOA would need to be responsible for those. We also have some regulations having the lot lines not be in the middle of a slope, having the retaining walls not be in the middle of a slope, and addressing those pieces. And I'm going to go ahead and let David elaborate on our intent.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Ashley's pretty spot on. Probably the only clarification I would say is we're trying to keep the residential lots in broad terms flatter to allow the residents to maintain it easier. That generally speaking, your homeowner's not going to be able to maintain super steep slopes that we require special plantings and stuff like that to help control erosion and runoff and stuff like that. In comparison, that a typical HOA is going to hire that out to a specialized contractor that's more capable of doing that kind of thing. That's where most of this comes from, in addition to wall maintenance and embedment zones. We're dealing with geotechnical grids and stuff like that for actual structure reasons. Thank you.
Until they tell me I can move on. So we do have 2 pages. Like I said, this one has a lot of red lines. We can also let you absorb it, and if you have any concerns in the interim before second reading, you can also follow up with
Does this
staff.
apply to a single-family home, just a,
No, this would
Okay.
be a project.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Oh, that was the last one. There were 2 slides that threw me off, so.
Okay.
So those are the list of amendments. I'm happy to revisit any of them. I have some good guidance on some additional follow-up with our city attorney and some potential amendments for the next round. But happy to explore anything else while you have me.
Do we have a motion and a second on this? Not yet. For the purpose of further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
Second.
In a second. Floor is open for additional conversation, discussion, questions at this point.
One additional comment on the TIA requirements. I know a lot of times in the reports, they'll have suggestions and recommendations. Do we have a mechanism in our ordinance? Because I know sometimes developers with their traffic consultants may have suggested items, but aren't necessarily required. Do we have a mechanism in our ordinance if we feel like a suggestion should be a required item, we could hold those as valid requirements to be done as well?
So technically, only if the build conditions cause the level of service to become a D or worse, or worsen an existing D or worse. That is our trigger for being able to require mitigation.
I won't dissertate now. We'll talk later.
Okay.
Okay.
I like where you're going. I'm fine with making people do more. That's an interesting suggestion. I'd like to look into it.
Thank you. I believe we've made good progress tonight. We've obviously noted some things that we would like either additional information on or a review on. Any of that information that can be gathered and disseminated in possibly some regard before we get to second reading on this may be helpful, but if not, we will consider it in a discussion as it comes back before us for second reading. So any additional changes at this point, other than what we have addressed, would be taken up at another session. So we will wait for further advisement on some of these issues and then go from there. This is something we'll obviously have some debate about it at second reading, and depending on how contentious that seems to be in terms of the different items, we'll either take it one at a time or we'll address the whole ordinance at one time. This is first reading of ordinance number 22-2025. Any further questions or comments in that regard? Any further discussion this evening? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Mr. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Hopper,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Miss Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, we have no items in executive session this evening. We stand adjourned.